Ladies and gentlemen, to software engineering revision. I'm super excited that I'm making this video, and also you guys out there that's also watching this video, thank you very much. And in this video I just want to be talking about the backend, the how I built user management system, the backend, because the last video I talked about the front end, and I want to be talking about the backend from scratch. I want to see if I actually understand what I built, right? Mind you, I use ChatGPT and Cloud AI to build this project, but now I want to actually explain what each file does, the line of the code, the libraries I use. First of all, let me talk about the files I created. I created server.js, that is the main engine. I created user.js, that is the file I'm using to talk to the database, to validate the data that will go into the database. I created an auth route, that is where the login and the register function is going to be, function route is going to be. I created which other one, the auth middleware. Yes, I created a auth middleware to validate that any user without token cannot copy my URL and access my data. Yes, and I also, for that same auth middleware, I have a rule-based access control. Yes, that only admin can delete and edit user cannot delete user, but only admin or officer can delete or edit user or create. Yes, and I also have another folder called error handler. It's a centralized data where audio error that might occur in the component will be passed to error handler, then error handler will pass it to the front end. Yes. God, I'm just happy that you can see that I love backend more than front end, because you can see that the backend is just free, but front end, oh, my head is all right. Which other file did I created? I created yes. Which other one? I created DB. Yes, database file. That is the database. That is the file I used to connect to my database. I created .env. That is the file that I used to store my secret. And yes, now some of the libraries I use in the backend, I install .env for, so that process will be able to read my env secret. I install Mogus to talk to the database. I install .NET modules. I install, which other one again? Why am I forgetting? I install cores for my front end to talk to my backend. That is the major work, of course. I install Bcrypt.js to hash my password. Then I install JSON web token to send token to my front end. All right, let's talk about the user model. In the user model, all you just have to do there, that one is extremely simple. You just have to require your modules. Then you define your module schema, where you are going to say the name. It must be string, it must be required. You have to the email, you have to be unique. Yes. And for rule, are we defining rule? Yeah, for rule, you have to create an array of officer, user, and admin. Yes. Then you are going to do something like cost user is equals to model dot, you are going to say mogus dot model, because mogus have three property that I've worked with so far: the compare property, the verify property, and the compare property, the verify property, and lastly, I think which other one again? Yes, is the schema property. Those are the three property I've worked with mogus so far. And which other thing again did I work with? That is for module. And what I just have to do, I have to export. The variable that we hold the model is what you are going to export, because that is what you are going to be using in your files, right? And in the auth files, let me just explain the login file. I love that so much. First of all, the login file, I also cross check the data before I pass it down to model, pass it down to user, before pass it down to user, from user to database. Yes. What it does is that I use safe pass to I also declared how did I do this right now? Yes, I know it, but I know now I'm going to say it for you to understand what I'm trying to say, right? I declared the Zod, using Zod to validate the front end data before sending it down to database. That is what I'm trying to say. Then I check the email. If the email already exists, I'm going to send the response back saying that the email already exists. But if the email is new, is correct, then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to hash the password. After hashing the password, then I'm going to send a response back. That is for register. Register is so simple. Validate the data. Once the data is correct, check the email. If the email is correct, hash the password. After hashing the password, then send request back, like login successful, success, then send back the user. While for login route, it's also simple. All you just have to do, check the email. If the email is correct, check the password. If the password is correct, then generate your token. After generating your token, send it down to front end, send response message. That is it for front end. Right there for the auth middleware, all you just have to do is to declare your token. We are going to use it less because we are going to be reassigning it. Then check if request.headers, if it starts with barrier, in the front end we normally do authorization barrier token. Then for the back end, what we are going to do, we are going to check if the header starts with barrier. If it starts with barrier, then we are going to split it. Then pick, barrier is, we do something like the barrier, then the token, we are going to split it into two. Then we are going to use one, if for array the index starts with 0, which is the first element. We have one start for the second element, so we are going to be putting one to get the token itself. That is it. And for the rows, we are going to check also for rows. The rows, I can't explain that right now because if I try to explain it, it will be, the video will get a little bit long, which I don't want. And also for the .env file, what is just simple. .env, what it stores is that it stores, first of all, it stores the Mongo URL. You are going to copy that from the MongoDB. Your secret, that one you can choose anything, any secret at all, choose it. Then your port number. And if you want to read any of this property, you are going to be using process.env. That is it. Which other file I not talk? I'll talk about the auth route. I'm talking about login. I'm talking about login route. I'll talk about login. I'll talk about register. I'll talk about user. I'll talk about the saver. The saver. Then the saver is just your gap. That is the whole application. We are going to map them inside saver.js. What that one does is that we are going to be requiring calls. We are going to be requiring those routes, error handler, all of them. Then we are going to mount them inside. I think these are most the major things that I did in the back end, right? So thank you very much. I really appreciate you. This video might not a little bit, there's no animation and all, but I'm just trying to really get this thing done because we have a vision that we are pursuing to build national surveillance system that's going to scale across the 36 states in Nigeria. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and